It is draft week, Browns fans, so we're going to run through the latest Browns draft rumors before Cleveland makes their pick at 54. We're going to talk about what the buzz and what the word on the street is in Berea. But before we get to all that good stuff, we are launching a full frontal attack on Steelers Talk for subscribers this week. We're starting off at 0-0, but help us take down Steelers Talk in subscribers for the NFL draft week. But let's get into the fun draft rumors surrounding the Browns as one player's name keeps surfacing over and over and over again. Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State. Now, for all the Buckeyes fans watching right now, try to take your Buckeyes glasses off for a moment and just talk about the player objectively, because what's good for you on Saturday is awesome, but that doesn't always translate to Sunday success. So let's talk about the kid from Columbus. He's 6'2", 299 pounds, ran a 4.75 40-yard dash. So I know 4.75 sounds like a big number, and it is for wide receivers. For defensive tackles, that is one of the fastest you'll see in a handful of years. It's not like it's just a really fast time for 2024. No, it's a really fast time in most drafts. So from an athletic standpoint, he's got incredible speed and quickness, and that's really important for defensive tackles because the moment that ball is snapped, that's the difference between finding yourself in a double team or getting into the backfield and making a tackle for loss. Now, Jordan Reid from ESPN had Michael Hall as his pick for Cleveland at 54. And then Zach Jackson from The Athletic also name-dropped Michael Hall as an option. So those two are just more the recent examples of some buzz around Hall to Cleveland. My issue with Hall is he's been really gifted athletically, but he's kind of been an inconsistent player. I mean, look at his stats from 2023. 24 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. I'm perfectly fine with a defensive tackle that doesn't fill up the stat sheet. And that's usually because they find themselves in a role-playing situation where they're not supposed to make the big tackles, but they're supposed to swallow up offensive linemen so that linebackers can go make the big tackles. That's not Michael Hall's game. Michael Hall is not supposed to be a player that just bodies up offensive linemen and frees up other players. No, when you're sub 300 pounds and you've got a really good 40-yard dash, your strengths are supposed to be getting to the quarterback and the running back and the ball carrier. I mean, when you look at his career stats, those numbers look like the type of numbers you'd see for a full season stats, right? I mean, sure, a little bit on the bigger end with 10 tackles for loss and 6 sacks, but that's not usually the numbers you'd expect to see over the course of an entire career for the guy going 54 at defensive tackle when it's not like his strengths are run-stopping abilities. No, his strengths are getting after the ball carrier. And the production just wasn't there in Columbus. I don't like this pick at 54. I understand Andrew Berry has a history of going after highly gifted athletic players, and Michael Hall definitely checks that box for you. But if you can't beat guards and centers from Northwestern and Rutgers, I don't think you're going to have a whole lot more success in the NFL. So I'm sure coaches are going to look at this and think, man, if I can get my hands on that 4.75, near 300 pound, like that type of size and speed isn't in every single draft. I can hone his powers in and unleash Michael Hall to be one of the better pass rushing interior defensive linemen. Coaches are going to make that bet. I don't like making that bet. Now, here's what Jordan Reid said on his selection for Hall to the Browns. The Browns are finally on the clock late in round 2, and I could see them targeting an explosive interior defensive lineman. Hall's pass rush repertoire is fantastic, as he consistently creates disruption with his effective first step, 20 pressures in 2023. So I'll toss it your way. Do you want to draft Michael Hall at pick 54? I would pass on that. Again, it's tough to say without knowing who else is available, but just surface level, if that's the pick, I'm not going to be doing jumping jacks for it. I think we're getting towards a similar path of like Perrion Winfrey, and Hall's much more athletic than Perrion Winfrey. For example, Perrion Winfrey, off the top of my head, was like 290 pounds, and he ran, someone can fact check me, 4.9 40-yard dash. So Hall is bigger and faster. So from like an athletic trait standpoint, like Hall definitely hands down takes down Jordan Elliott and Perrion Winfrey and Tommy Togiai. some of these other DTs that Andrew Berry has drafted. But I still feel like if you can't produce in college on the defensive line, you're going to have difficulties in the NFL. I'm all for, what's that? 489. Producer in my ear, 489. Okay. 100th of a second off. If you can't get great production as a wide receiver in college, I can look past that because you're very much reliant on your quarterback, right? If you don't have a good quarterback, you're not going to get good throws. You're not going to get a lot of yards and touchdowns, right? I can understand looking past stats from a quarterback in college. If they don't have a good offensive line or they don't have good wide receivers, like give them real players to work with and they can give you better results. Defensive line, that is mano y mano, right? There's a little bit of wiggle room, but that is pretty much beat the man in front of you. And if you can't do it in college, I don't care how fast, strong, or big or tall you are, I don't think you're going to wake up in the NFL and figure out how to do it against better offensive linemen. Now, hot take, I don't even think the Browns are going to pick at 54. The more I thought about it the last few days over the weekend going into draft week, the more I get the sense that Andrew Berry knows that he doesn't need pick 54 to be some big-time contributor for him. So he may look to trade back and get more picks. And I'll expand on that thought in just a moment. But I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor today, which is Game Time. Spring is here, which means we've got baseball, playoff basketball, playoff hockey, and so much more. And I don't want you guys to miss out on any of the fun action because of ticket prices. With Game Time, you can get killer last-minute deals and all-in prices for all the big events. I personally think there's nothing more frustrating than spending like 30 minutes on a ticket app website trying to get the best seats possible, only to find out that when you get to checkout, the price doubles with taxes and fees. But with Game Time, you can just click an all-in option, and you know the all-in price before you get down that rabbit hole. It's the best place to find last-minute seats, too. So download Game Time today and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Game Time has awesome deals, including flash deals and zone deals, depending on where you want to sit, and they've got the lowest price guaranteed. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but once again, use that code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So let's switch gears a little bit from Michael Hall and just talk draft in general. I think there's a good chance the Browns will trade out of pick 54. For starters, they haven't had a second-round selection since 2021 when they got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. So they have become accustomed to skipping out of the first two rounds of the draft the last 2 years. Now, they've traded out of round number 2 for players and for draft picks. Martin Emerson in 2022, they traded back, and then Elijah Moore in 2023. But when you look at the Browns' draft arsenal for this year, they got 6 picks altogether. I don't put a lot of value into round 7, and neither does Andrew Berry. So in my eyes, they've kind of got like 4 picks, really, maybe 4.5 if you want to call these 2 7th-rounders half a pick. They don't have a pick in round number 4, and they've only got 2 picks in the top 100, and they're the last team to pick. So Andrew Berry may look at pick 54 and think, can I turn that into another 3rd-round selection and a 4th or a 5th-round pick? My guess is if that was an option for him, he would probably take it. Now, what could the Browns get for 54? Zach Jackson from The Athletic had an excellent write-up this morning, and he talked about this exact question. And he pointed to a draft trade last year where the Chiefs and the Lions made a swap where Kansas City went from 63 up to 55 and tossed Detroit a 4th and a 7th. And the Chiefs exchange also got a 6th-rounder for moving up from 63 to 55. So you bump up 8 spots like this, or in the Browns' case, you move back 8 spots, and this is not far off from 54, 1 pick later, and you're essentially garnishing an extra 4th-round pick. So that could definitely be something Andrew Berry explores. My guess is AB may prefer quantity over quality this year. If he felt like the Browns were 1 piece away when it comes to finding a starter in the draft, then he may say, no, we're just going to go with 54. We need this position. We're taking the best guy at that position, and then our puzzle is completed. When you look at the Browns starting lineup, all 22 starters are accounted for. We can make a good argument for linebacker, but this is not a really good linebacker draft class. So Andrew Berry may not want to force a linebacker pick and have it be a major reach because he's a smart guy. He's an analytics-driven Harvard grad, and he's going to look by the book. And if he's got Edgerrin Cooper or insert linebacker pegged as someone worth going 70th overall, he's not going to take him 54 because he needs a linebacker. He'll look to trade back to 70 and get that linebacker then. So who could be available towards the end of round 2 and the early stages of round 3? Here are 5 names to keep an eye on. I don't think Malachi Corley is going to go as high as other people think he will. I think he's going to be much closer to the start of round 3 than the start of round 2. Florida's, I wouldn't say do it all, but sure hands player, Ricky Pearsall, I think he's going to be towards round number 2, early round 3. Jonathan Brooks from Texas, Dominic Puni from Kansas, and then LSU's defensive tackle Mason Smith. We've talked about Corley a lot on this channel, so I won't beat a dead horse. But let's look at the Florida Gators wide receiver. Last year, 965 yards and 6 total touchdowns, and Graham Mertz was his quarterback. Compared to the season prior, early in his career at UF, 1 year with Anthony Richardson, and he averages 20 yards a reception. Now, he's got a huge catch radius. If you had to get a lineup of 5 wide receivers in this draft class that you toss the ball their way and they end up coming down with it, because at the end of the day, that is the core of what a wide receiver's job is, to catch the football. That is what Ricky Pearsall does a lot better than other wide receivers. Now, Jonathan Brooks is tempting. Last year in his lone season as a starter for Texas, because keep in mind, he was buried on a depth chart with NFL draft picks like Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. He performed. Unfortunately, he only played 11 games. An ACL injury cut his season short, but he averaged over 6 yards a pop, 11 touchdowns, and 1,100 yards. I think Brooks, his profile has the making of a guy that slips through the cracks a little bit, and people look back at it and go, how was he available so late in the draft? Just deja vu slightly of Nick Chubb. Here's some fun, Jonathan Brooks facts for you. He's from Texas, went to Texas. He was Mr. Texas Football, the Texas Football Award. Cole, do you know what it's called off the top of your head? Okay, it's like the number 1 Texas football player in the state. Jonathan Brooks won that award. He's the first player to win that award despite losing in the state championship. That would be like winning Super Bowl MVP and your team lost. That's how incredible and explosive he was. He had about 68, 70 touchdowns in high school. Not in his career, sorry, in a season. This guy, unfortunately, went to a school where they had loaded running backs. If he went to, what's it called? Mr. Texas Football. He won in 2020, yeah. If he went to another school where they didn't have a future top 10 pick and a future just NFL draft pick in Roschon Johnson, he would have been a 3-year starter for them, and people would have him way higher in their drafts. Plus, if he didn't tear his ACL, I think he would have been a late first-round pick. So if the Browns are looking at this going, we may have an opportunity to just steal a running back that has no business being available this late, but if not for just being a 1-year starter and an ACL tear, would be a lot earlier in the draft. But he falls to us at the end of round 2, early round 3. I think if they went this route, this would be a sign of this is Nick Chubb's last season in Cleveland. And maybe this front office isn't prepared to make that commitment yet. Maybe they feel like Nick Chubb still has more years left in him. Or maybe they just don't want to, have an awkward pick knowing how much this locker room and fan bases loves Nick Chubb. And then they use their first draft pick on a running back, signaling a replacement in the near future. And I wouldn't put it past them. Nick Chubb just means that much to this team in this locker room where the Browns are not going to draft his replacement while Nick Chubb is still on this team. But I think Jonathan Brooks is going to be a really good running back for some team in the draft. And it may be the Browns. A few other guys I want to talk on really quickly. Mason Smith. Remember we talked about Michael Hall earlier being a super fast cat? How about Mason Smith? He is 300-plus pounds, and he's not very far behind Michael Hall in his 40-yard dash. A little bit behind, but much bigger size. He's one of the few 300-pound plus DTs in this draft, period. It's not a very big defensive tackle draft. And he's got incredible physical traits and size. Plus, he checks the Andrew Berry box of being young and athletic, 21 and an 8.4 RAS score. So Smith could be someone that the Browns target later in round 2. Now, another guy that we had on our list was Dominic Puni, 6'5", 213. Oh, that's 313 pounds. Sorry. He's 24. He's definitely not 213 pounds. He's 24. That is old for Andrew Berry, right? He was a 2-year starter at KU. He transferred to Lawrence, Kansas. He did not allow a single sack in either season. He also was experienced at left tackle. Whoa, I'm off screen. We'll come back on screen. Right tackle, Houdini. Left tackle, right tackle, and guard. So the Browns may look at that versatility as a really good asset because if they do go offensive line, I don't think it's a surefire he's replacing this guy, right? It could be a Jed Wills replacement after this year. It could be one of the interior offensive linemen as they're all heading towards expiring contracts in the near future. So Puni could offer some versatility on the offensive line. All right, before we get on out of here, if you are tuning in for our watch party for day 2 of the NFL draft, type me in the comment section. The caterers want to know how many people are coming, how much finger food to get. Don't worry, we're going to have the mini corn dogs. We're going to have pigs in a blanket. Cannot miss those things. So make sure to type me in the comment section below. All right, let's wrap up the video by picking a card as I've got producer Cullen Brown hanging out with me on a Monday. You ready for draft week?
I'm so ready.
It's Cullen's first draft week here at Chat Sports. My third. What card do you want to go with? You got it last time.
I know. I've got 2 so far this offseason.
Can you go back to back?
Let's see. I'm going to roll with 5 of spades today.
5 of spades. Give me 8 of clubs. No reason. 7 of diamonds in between our 2 guesses. 7 of diamonds. All right, that will do it for us on this edition of the Cleveland Browns Report. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, and I'll see you all later.